Okay, right. So this week is all about sort of building on where you are so far. So strengthening and then restoring yourself. And it's about the habits that you've already started creating with huge gusto. It's about building them into, more and more situations, which, I know that you have already, because that's how life is. It isn't like you've just been sat at home for a couple of weeks. But we're going to talk about sort of navigating those everyday situations. We're going to talk about eating out. We're going to talk about shopping. Um, so it's this sort of like flexibility to make it work with everyday life, whilst holding the things that you want to keep in place. So we're going to talk about this week. We're going to talk about nutrition in the real world. So talk about food labels. Make sure you feel really confident, knowing what to look for on a food label, knowing what's going to help you. Some of the like almost tricks that food producers have in order to try and sell you things. I'm going to talk about a bit about eating out, some tips to help make it as easy as possible, and obviously anything that you've learned that's helping you too. And then we're going to talk a little bit about flexible routine because this is sort of key to making it work with the real world, whatever is going on. And it's about having enough of routine in place that you've got that consistency to keep you going, but being flexible enough that you don't kind of feel like, oh my goodness, I haven't done it, so I may as well give up. Having that balance between the two. We're also going to talk a little bit more about movement because we haven't very much yet. So, this will build on what we were talking about, Becky, with HIIT and what other types of movement are particularly helpful for women from perimenopause right through menopause and post-menopause. What do you need? And, very personally, what do you need? Not just in terms of, body functions, but also what do you need in terms of to support you and have the life you want? And then just finishing up, making sure that you feel happy and confident for week 3 and the second half of the journey. But firstly, like I think just a big sort of pause that you've got this far and, what you have achieved, which I know, for both of you here this evening is really significant and for everyone in this challenge. And 15 days, it's a long time to be consistently putting these actions into place. And the beginning bit is often really hard because you're trying to do things very differently to how you have done already, and you've got to sort of build in those new habits. So just huge acknowledgement for, where you have got to and the fact that this is where you are. So I hope you are both feeling proud of yourselves for everything you've achieved so far.
Yeah, I think so. I think there's still more to do, but yeah, the fact that I've stuck to it is, yeah, unusual.
Good. Well, take that as a is unusual because you're doing some things differently. Um, and that's key, I think, isn't it? Doing things differently because we want things to be different this time. We want this to be something you can sustain, so you don't have to start start a plan again. And yeah, you should be because the changes you're creating are amazing. How about you, Becky? You feeling proud?
I wouldn't say proud. I think there's only been probably once in my life I've ever been proud of myself, to be honest.
Oh,
To be honest, that's one of the things I need to work on. I'm very self-critical. Um,
good. That's good that we've identified that and you can work
yeah,
on that.
yeah.
Becky, are
But
you
I think
doing that? Sorry, are you doing that challenge on Insight Timer?
yes,
Yeah, because
yeah,
that's aimed at that. I didn't think today's was particularly good, but I thought the first 2 days were quite powerful, and that's all
yeah,
about that inner voice, isn't it?
yeah. I've got to catch up on tonight's yet after this, so yeah, that is good. It's that I personally struggle with the self-worth sort of thing because
Mhm.
of trauma in my past. So I know it's linked to that. It's just a continual journey, isn't it? So
Absolutely, and it's not something that's going to change quickly, is it? But
Mhm.
you know, being aware of it and doing all these things. But if you can, even if you don't believe it at the moment, try and acknowledge, you know, what you are doing every day and all the effort you've put in. Or trust me for the moment. If your voice
Yeah.
will tell you, trust me that I am incredibly proud of you, and you know, you should be proud of yourself. It's not easy to do, but you should be, because this is amazing.
A wise woman once said to me, fake it till you make it. So tell yourself that you're proud of you, even if you don't believe it. The more you tell yourself, the more likely you are to start believing it.
Changing the conversation in your head, isn't it? Sort of
Yeah.
from those paths that are so deeply entrenched, that it takes time to rewire them. But yeah, you're
Yeah.
taking great steps to get there. So welcome to the second half. This is where we move on, and where you can just really embed what you've put in place. So just a couple of things to think about is a habit or an action that's feeling easy now. Is there anything that is beginning to feel natural that you're just doing without too much thought?
For me, it's cleaning my teeth as soon as within 20 minutes after I've finished a meal. And that triggers that I don't want to put any more food in my mouth.
That's brilliant. That's lovely, isn't it? And that's really, yeah,
It's really worked for me.
that's great. How about you, Becky? Is there anything that feels easier?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, I've been doing it. I think I'll be going into my 7th week, won't I? So I think I sort of like established the habit. So
Yeah.
it is easier in a way. I did have a little blip. I think it was, yeah, this weekend. I actually had an ice cream and I couldn't eat it because it was too sweet.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And normally I have got a really sweet tooth, so I was quite surprised by that.
And did you not enjoy it like you thought you would?
No,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it? How things taste different to how we sort of almost remember they taste.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I was always one to gravitate towards more sugary foods, particularly in the evening, that sugar crave. So yeah, it's definitely changed, you know, how my body copes with food. And you know, the consistency of no carbs at all, apart from obviously fruit and veg. Yeah.
Keeps it simple, doesn't it?
Mm.
I do think that's key. You know, both of what you've just said, it is making it, you know, really easy, like some really simple sort of almost rules or loose rules to have in place. What about a moment you felt strong? This is good work, Becky, isn't it, for building up your positive self-talk. Is there something in the last few weeks that you've done that felt hard, but you've done it anyway?
I suppose for me it was I was hoping for results quicker than I had seen. It was that because it's such a drastic change from previous sort of like, and I would say that my diet was reasonably healthy, but actually looking back, maybe not, maybe more processed food than you know needed. But for me, it was sort of like not seeing that change after all the hard work was really hard because it's slightly demotivating, but it's that perseverance to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. That's tough, isn't it?
Mm,
Yeah, and you've done that.
yeah,
And it's thinking about all the changes, isn't it?
yeah.
How about you, Beverly? What's felt tough?
That was not eating a Kit Kat.
Mm-hmm.
So I work 2 days a week with my boys, and yeah, there were 2-finger Kit Kats on the side, and I wasn't interested in them. And someone actually picked one up and gave it to me and said, "Oh, that's yours, Bev." And I was like, "Oh, oh, do you know, I don't actually want that. No, thank you." It was
Yeah,
quite,
that's good. It was literally in your hand. It would have been so easy.
yes, yeah. And it wasn't that I didn't want it and I didn't want the chocolate and the sugar. It was, oh, you've invested in yourself here so far. Are you really going to unravel 2 weeks good work just for the sake of a 2-finger Kit Kat? That
Really.
was the thought process.
That is really powerful. And there's something called the choice point, which is literally that point, Beverly, where you were when it was handed to you,
Yeah.
it's that moment, which is when you're going to go one way or the other. And actually, the most powerful thing you can do is exactly what you did, is put
Mm.
in a pause, put in a, oh, wait a minute, and not act, and know that you don't have to act straight away,
Yeah.
and know that you don't have to listen to what your brain is trying to tell you to do. So
And that was the day following Monday, which was the keto flu incident, and the 4 Jaffa cakes. So yeah, it kind of hit home really.
and it would have been easy, wouldn't it, after a day of feeling rubbish? And
Yes, yeah,
it's great. And I think a truth that isn't often talked about is that change is hard. Making especially health changes, it's difficult, and your brain won't want you to make changes. Your brain will want you to stay where you are because it's what it knows and it's easy. And even though where you are, where you were, was hard in other ways, obviously because you didn't have as much energy or your mood or whatever it was for you, your mind will still want that because it's comfortable. So moving away from that is difficult, and making these changes and getting yourself to do things you don't want to do is difficult. But it's about the reward you get from that. And
yeah. I think
accepting it's hard.
it's not so much about making the change because the willpower and enthusiasm is there to begin with. It's sustaining the change that I've always struggled with,
Yes.
and that's where the accountability comes in.
Yes. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And it is easy at the beginning, isn't it? It's easy to sort of,
Easier,
yeah,
yes.
to have that. Yes, easier. Good point. To have the enthusiasm and the novelty. But you're absolutely right. It's about keeping that going. And that's why all this sort of, the fact that you're talking about these things, sort of thinking, listening, reviewing, this is, so important, because it's changing. Your brain is listening and it's changing, it's rewiring, it's learning new skills and new ways to think about things. So thinking about this week, I'm going to talk about food labels to begin with. So I thought we'd start with seeing if either of you know what this food is. So these are the ingredients for food.
Oh my goodness, it sounds disgusting.
I wonder if either of you have had it. You may well have done. Any guesses?
It's the salt that's throwing me.
Yeah, but remember, they quite often put salt in.
Oh, so these aren't the full ingredients, these are some of the
No,
ingredients.
that is all the ingredients in this food product. Yeah.
I was going to say tomato ketchup, but there's no tomatoes in there, so
Not a bad guess.
no.
It's not easy. Becky, no?
Haven't got a clue, to be honest.
Okay, this is what it is.
Oh, right, okay.
But obviously because it's dairy free,
Yeah.
it doesn't have any of the cream, the milk in it. And you can see it literally is a combination of manufactured things.
Chemicals. Yeah.
But people would think that that was a healthy option because it's dairy free, and it looks like ice cream on the front, as much as ice cream is healthy. So looking at food labels. So what I always suggest doing is don't look at the front of the box, because the front of the box will try and tell you all sorts of things. You've got the traffic light system, which is ridiculous, which is focusing on entirely the wrong things. You've got all the health claims, Again, if they've got health claims on there, then it's not a good product generally, because otherwise you wouldn't need to make a health claim. So turn it over, look at the ingredients list, look at what's in there. How long is that list of ingredients to start with? And do you recognize the ingredients? Are they things that you have at home? And ideally, you want all of them to be things you have at your home, or most of the food you eat to be things you have at home. So generally, if it's a very long list and things you don't recognize, then that's probably an ultra processed food. So that's sort of the simplest thing to look at. Also, ingredients, I'm sure you know this, but they're listed in order of quantity. So the one at the top, they've got the most of that ingredient in. Now, to try and get around, try and be cheeky, what they'll do is they'll split ingredients so that they don't come up as high on that list. So for example, they'll put several different types of sugar in. They might put glucose, they might put a syrup, they might put a sweetener, because then suddenly they've divided it into 3 and it comes down much lower on that food list rather than sugar be top 1 or 2. So, they're pretty crafty. So look for foods that have got protein in, look for sort of natural fats, look for fiber, look for things you recognize. This food list, very simple, all real foods. And here's an example. So on the right, like a snack that, lots of these types of snacks, aren't there? Protein bars. Some of them will call themselves protein bars because then they'll try and sneak in as being super healthy, or cereal bars. And again, just masses of ingredients, lots of different types of sugar, things like stabilizers, emulsifiers. So if we look at an alternative snack, so nuts, you've literally got 1 ingredient. So your body is going to know exactly what to do with the nuts because it's natural. How on earth can our body know what to do and how to handle this on the right? It can't, because it's not natural. It's not had a chance to get to know these things. So this is why, processed foods cause inflammation, glucose spikes, and have an effect on our gut, on our brain, and everything else. So some people, there might be enough for you just to sort of look at the ingredients, keep it as real as possible, know that you're mostly having protein. But if you want to sort of look in a bit more detail, then you can look at the ratio of the foods on the label. And so generally, if you're sort of eating low carb, a ratio of something between 1.1 to 1 ratio of protein to carbohydrate, something between that and 2 to 1 would support metabolic health. So what I mean by that is, say a product had 10 grams of protein in, it had 10 grams of carbohydrate in, or 5 grams of carbohydrate. And that might seem like still quite a lot of carbohydrate, but remember, most of the food you're having will be foods without labels. What we're aiming for is to have as much whole food as possible. So obviously things like broccoli or apples or blueberries or some salmon, it doesn't really have a label on it. So this is only for those other things, which might be dairy, might be, things like beans, pulses, all those sorts of things. That's sort of a general goal. Now, if you're bringing carbohydrate down lower, if you're keto, then we don't really want to look at the protein to carb ratio, because we're keeping carbs super low. So then it's about the fat to protein ratio. And actually fat becomes more important because we want to sort of have enough fat and not have too much protein, because that helps us to be in ketosis more. And if that's what we're aiming for, we get more of the benefits from the ketones in terms of our brain, in terms of satisfying our appetite, all of those things. So then, it's a rough guide, and this isn't a really strict keto diet, but around 1.5 grams of fat to 1 gram of protein. So if you're having 100 grams of protein, that's about 150 grams of fat. And, keto would be 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrate a day. That's just a bit of a guide and going with some simple numbers. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So these are some of the names that you'll find for carbohydrate foods. So for sugars and starches, it's not endless, but it's some of the main ways that they'll come up. And you can see there's all sorts. So there's sort of the standard sugars, the brown sugar, um, cane sugar. Then there's sort of like the natural or healthy sugars that sometimes people think it's okay because it's date sugar or it's coconut sugar. And it is natural, absolutely, but it will still be treated as sugar by the body, and blood sugar levels and insulin will still go up. Then you've got things like sugar alcohols. So let me just find one of those ending in ol, which are quite common. I can't see any on there actually, but sugar alcohols is a common one. I need to add those. Then there's the liquid sweeteners, so all the syrups, those sorts of things. Then there's the thickeners, which again have an effect on our blood sugar levels as well. And as I say, lots of these will be added in multiples on products. So it's just sort of being familiar with what is sugar. And I just wanted to talk about sweeteners a little bit as well, because these are in a lot of products, and particularly if you're trying to keep carbohydrates low, there might be sweeteners in some of those things, or you might want to use sweeteners and things. So the optimal health is to move away from sugar and sweeteners completely, or as much as you need to. That's the optimal. However, sweeteners can be really helpful for some people sort of to get there. And for some people, they'll continue to have sweeteners, sometimes in a product or if they want to cook. So these are the three that I feel are from what we know at the moment, the safest for our overall health. Stevia and monk fruit come from a plant. They're natural. They don't have an effect on our blood sugar levels. Erythritol is one of these sugar alcohols. It has, barely any impact on our blood glucose levels. And, the research so far shows these are the safest. We're sort of still beginning to learn what they do to our gut health. So we don't know whether they impact our gut health in the long term. But I think if you're having them in very small amounts, then these would be the ones I would go for. Just as well, just to be aware, there's a couple of other things. So when we use sweeteners or have foods that have sweeteners in regularly, then we don't lose that sort of desire for those sweet things. So it can sort of make it harder. And like you've both talked to me about sort of that changing. So that is really helpful, isn't it, sort of to have that change. But yeah, if you want to use sweeteners, and these are some. You might see allulose on quite a lot of things as well, but that's not available in the UK. It's used a lot in the US, but it's not available here at the moment. And I really like this quote. If sugar is one of the first three ingredients, it's a dessert. It's not it's not a food. And I think it's just being really clear about what things are. So I thought we'd look at, what we might have, this is really normal, isn't it? Sort of thing that might be in an office at work, or we might have, if we go to someone's house, these little sort of cake treat things. And there's a massive list of ingredients on here. When actually Rocky Road, if you think about it, like it's some chocolate, some marshmallows, bit of biscuit, isn't it? Maybe some raisins, but there's masses of ingredients. And then, so what we could swap that with, so if we thought about some watermelon or some strawberries and cream, it's so entirely different, isn't it, what you're getting? And this is actually providing you with the ingredients that your body needs to work, and calming inflammation rather than heightening it. Then I've just got a couple of recipes here that you might want to take pictures of if you fancy them. So these are a couple of things if you want something sweet occasionally. Very look, see, super simple. These are just dark chocolate and dates. And these are something that you can keep in the freezer, so you could just get one out when you want something. And they are absolutely delicious. They really do taste like Rolos. You don't have to make them in this shape. You could just do them in little ice cube but they're really, really nice. Or chocolate coated Brazil nuts too. So again, super simple, 2 ingredients and something you can just have and it will stay in the fridge for ages. And you might have found other things that you have if you want something. Is that something you've done, or have you just not had it, just taken out the sweet things?
The only thing I allow myself to have sweet is fruit, yogurt, and a piece of dark chocolate if I really want a sugar craving, sort of, But I've checked the labels, and this one is like pure chocolate.
Oh, brilliant. Great. So really simple, but you've got things you can have if you want them. Fabulous. Okay, so eating out. So I've just got some tips for eating out. Has this been hard at all? Like eating out? We did have a conversation, didn't we, Becky, about you going out to eat?
Not as hard as I anticipated, because I've tried to. It depends where you're going, obviously. But for example, we were going for Pizza Hut, a couple of weeks ago, and actually I had a side which was the chicken strips, just chicken strips, and a bowl of salad.
Yeah, you made it work. Did you still enjoy going out to eat?
Yeah, I did. I mean, everyone was like, "Why are you eating pizza?" Like, oh, but yeah.
Yeah, it is everyone's reaction often, isn't it? And doing something different to different people. Do you know, this is something that comes up so often in my NHS role. Quite a lot of the people that I'm speaking to are retired, and for them, this is one of the biggest things because they'll spend a lot of time going maybe to a garden centre or a coffee shop and those places, often sometimes I look up the menu to look with them, and it is panini, toasty, jacket potato. They're really, really set up around carbohydrates, and coffee shops. Some of them are getting better now with things, but very often it's the cake and it's the changing, because that's such a big part of the day and what they're doing, and it can be a really big deal.
If in doubt, opt for the soup.
Yes, yeah,
I think we've got to look at it though. I mean, because like we went to the National Trust the other day and we had lunch there. And I normally have a jacket, but I thought, no, I can't have a whole jacket. So I had half a jacket with tuna and I had double salad.
Brilliant, brilliant. Because actually, National Trust, I would say, is one of those places that isn't very well set up, and you've made it work. Yeah. And did they do that for you? Did they take off the?
I had to order a normal salad, and my partner had a jacket as well. So I gave him half of my jacket, and he gave me his salad.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
We just won't worry about his blood glucose levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here are some things that may work for you. Like obviously, if it's your choice, choosing, not the places I've just talked about, not the places which are going to be more those snack type, bakery type things, and somewhere like a pub or that type of thing generally works better because it's things like steaks or fish or those sorts of things. Looking at the menu ahead of time can help because you're able to sort of think about it and make decisions, when you're feeling good, when you're not feeling hungry, or when you're not, influenced by what other people are saying and eating. Preloading. So this can really help is to have some protein or some vegetables before you go out. So the soup would work perfectly, Beverly, like when you go out, if that's an option, but you could have a bowl of soup before you go out, or a bit of cold meat, or a bit of cheese, or a little bit of salad, so that it feels odd, doesn't it, to eat more, but by having that, then you're going to have something in your stomach. It's going to make it much easier not to make a decision based on being really hungry. Try to stick to the same guiding principles as much as you can for now. It's not saying this is always going to be the way, but at the moment you're in a phase of trying to make these health transformations happen as quickly as possible. So for the moment, try and stick to, exactly like you said, Becky, getting that protein in, trying to keep carbohydrates down, even if it's different to what you have at home, even if it's not exactly those proportions, just sort of as much as you can. Again, just like you did, asking for adjustments, don't be afraid to ask. For them to swap something, or to not bring the bread out or not bring the chips out, so that you don't have them there. You don't have to make that decision with them on the table. Do a bit of movement after your meal, like even if you are sort of aware of this and are sort of trying to eat to the same principles, it might be a bigger meal than you're used to, or it might be later than you usually eat. So trying to do a little bit of movement, maybe park a little bit further away. This I spoke about, just thinking about, this is a particular period in your life. This is your health change. So as you get closer to your goal, or you get to your goal, then you work out, right, what works for me now, and finding a place. And it might be that sometimes you go out for a meal and you have exactly what you want, or it might be you sort of flex it a bit. Considering if a food will be a trigger for you, and I mean in terms of cravings. So, it's not really about the fact that you might have some bread with your meal, because, bread once, in the whole scheme of things, really doesn't matter. It's more what will happen if you have that bread. Will that make you think about wanting some bread the next day, or think about, oh, I'll have a little bit, or I really fancy some crisps, and honestly, the amount of times when I sort of talk to people and go back through, it so often starts with bread, and very often with sourdough. And, they sort of wondering why the chocolates crept back in, or why, and it doesn't have to be the same food. So just being aware of that, because sometimes then it's just not worth it. Continuing your non-negotiable habits, so continuing the things that you can do every day, are really important, and you'll know what they are for you. Just start the next day with your intention exactly the same as you normally would, regardless of whether you've eaten the way you wanted to or not. Start the next day, nourish you as best you can. So you could pack something, obviously I know this isn't the most sociable and and it won't work for every occasion, but sometimes, if you're going, I don't know, to a conference, or, and you just know, or you don't know what the food will be like, staying in control and packing yourself something, you might still have a little bit of what's available, but it means that you don't have to, have all of the brown beige buffet because there's nothing else until you get home late at night. You can have something, and then you've got something in your car. And seeing this meal as an opportunity to practice doing things differently, and not do what you usually do, and being aware that your brain will want you to do what you normally do, and it'll try and find a way around that. It'll try and convince you that it's okay tonight, or you're going to share it, so it's okay. And that's fine if that's what you choose to do. But again, it's going back to what you were saying, Beverly. It's about pausing for a moment, checking, giving yourself a moment, and deciding for yourself what you want, not letting your brain just tell you.
I don't find it a problem eating out, because you've got a menu and therefore you can make a choice. And as you say, you can ask for adjustments. It's going to a friend's house for lunch that is the challenge for me. By the time you say, well, I need protein and I can eat vegetables, I don't want any bread, I don't want any potatoes, I don't want, and off you get this list, and it's a bit awkward sometimes.
Yeah, that is harder. Would you say anything in advance, or would you not?
Well, I've got round it this month by saying, "Oh, come to me for lunch. I'll make a soup," and I buy them some nice bread, and I just eat the soup with some seeds on or something. So I've got round it this month. But on Saturday, I'm going to a friend's for a walk and a light lunch. Well, she's a chef, so yes.
And you don't want to have to cook and host forever, do you?
No, and you don't want to keep saying, "Well, I can't eat that. I can't eat that. I can't eat that." So
Have you got
yes.
any thoughts of how you'll handle it?
I'll just go for the veggies or the salad, whatever she does. And last time she did chicken kebabs and steak kebabs as well. So that wasn't too bad. Did have dressing all over it, and the salads all had dressing in, but and she'd put some nuts and seeds on the table as well. So I kind of worked my way around that really.
And I guess it's about letting some things go, isn't it? You know, if there's dressings or sauces,
Yes.
it's letting those things go and going for the, you know, if you can get some of the main things in, like the protein.
Yeah, and avoid the beige food. So
Yeah. And I guess it's phrasing it differently, isn't it? It's phrasing like, oh, I'll have a little bit more of this rather than I won't have this.
yeah.
But yeah, you're right. A lot of it is people, isn't it? And it's people, and you know, people pushers and food pushers. For whatever reason, often it's done with love, or you know, they want to, but that is a big thing. So
I've made this amazing chocolate cake.
yeah, yeah,
My usual one is, sorry, I'm gluten free.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's nice and easy. Or it could be, oh, I'm full now. Can I take a piece home? I'd love to try it later.
Yes.
But then you have to not eat it later. Yeah, it's interesting. And sometimes it's not, you know, although I think a lot of the time it's because people want to, you know, show you that they care and make something, but it's not always, that's not always what drives it. Sometimes it's about making them feel better about having a piece of cake or a pudding or
Yeah.
okay, flexible routine. So it's about going from all or nothing, which a lot of us are. We have this, you know, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Oh no, I'm not going to do it anymore, to always something. So it's trying to make that shift. And I think this is really, really natural that sort of, and you're talking about what we were earlier about sort of starting off and having that enthusiasm. And then if we can't maintain it at the same level, then why bother? What's the point? I may as well stop. I'm not going to be able to do it anyway. All of those self-sabotaging thoughts that are ready as soon as we let them in. So it's trying to change those thoughts, and it's reminding yourself that you are doing this, you can do this, you've got everything you need to do this. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It can literally be, you know, a tiny thing today, and that is fine because that can just hold you enough until you can get back into your rhythm. So example of this is on a day when things feel hard or you're just sort of, you know, not motivated. Your normal workout could be, I don't know, it could be putting your legs up against the wall before you go to sleep. It could be doing 2 squats. It can be tiny. Think about a 1% rule. So doing 1% of something, you've still done it. Or instead of cooking dinner when you get home and you're sort of really thinking about, I don't know, either getting a pizza or not cooking and just having a little snack, it's right, I'm going to get myself a glass of water, I'm going to go outside, and then you can think about what you want to do. So again, it's putting that pause in place at that choice point. So, and doing this tiny action, to, you know, or when you're feeling tired or when you're feeling stressed or you haven't got time, practice this. Practice doing a tiny thing, because that's going to show you that you can do things differently and you can do things on the hard days. Have you done that at all so far? Have you sort of had to sort of think, okay, I'm not going to do that, but I'll do a smaller version of it?
Sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes I think, oh, I can't possibly do an hour workout. I'll do 40 minutes of yoga instead.
Yeah, good. And it's so against how we're conditioned and how we think. And this can be really hard for people again, because this comes back to compassion, doesn't it? Self-compassion, self-love, listening to what you need. And that sometimes takes time to build too. Okay, so moving on to movement. So movement exercise matters particularly from perimenopause right through for the rest of our lives. Because there's a shift at this time. There's this real shift. There's a shift, obviously, with our hormones and estrogen. There's a shift with insulin. We become more insulin resistant, and there's a shift with cortisol. So it's like this triad of hormones that are all interlinked. And then these hormones cause insulin resistance. They cause sarcopenia, so loss of muscle, and they affect how our mitochondria work and stop our mitochondria working as well. And mitochondria are, literally what is producing our energy every single day. And of a lot of the reason that, people feel unwell, feel tired, a lot of the symptoms people get is because their mitochondria cannot work as well as we want them to and drive that energy. So this is what's particularly important now. Supporting your metabolism, helping glucose control be as steady as possible, giving your mitochondria what they need to work, and exercise is brilliant for both of these things. Hormonal balance, so that is sort of supporting your body to produce, some of these hormones, some of these sex hormones, it will still produce in small amounts, supporting that. Symptom release, so if you have symptoms, perimenopausal symptoms, menopausal symptoms, again, exercise super effective with many of these things, like brain fog as well, aches and pains because of reducing inflammation, as well as sleep and night sweats. Body composition, so two of the key things we want to focus on from 40-ish onwards is our muscle, because we'll lose muscle every single year, and reducing visceral fat. Now that is one of those changes that again happens when we sort of start perimenopause, and will continue to happen, is that we shift where we store fat, and visceral fat will go up when it hasn't ever before, and visceral fat is what's driving inflammation. We want to safeguard and look after your bone, because your bone and your muscle is what's going to mean that you stay independent, you stay strong, you stay mobile. I saw a really lovely post. It was about someone was literally mountain biking in the mountains, and they said, I don't want to be telling people about all the amazing things I did when I was younger, because I want to still be doing them. It's not about all the stories you've had, it's about sort of maintaining that. And exercise, again, it's really good for helping our bone cells to continue to be active and to build. And then stabilizing mood and brain. And to me, this one's big enough to, drive exercise all on its own. But exercise will boost this molecule, brain-derived nootropic factor, which basically helps our brain to be more plastic. It'll help our brain to reduce inflammation. It'll help our brain to deal with emotional changes and what's going on. So incredibly helpful. It'll reduce anxiety, boost our mood, and help our brain to work better. So, for women at any age, but particularly for women from perimenopause onwards, resistance of training and all of these types of training is absolutely essential self-care. So I've started with resistance exercise because this comes so important for us as women, and that will be different to where you are. So for everyone, starting with body weight exercises, because using your body weight is a really good weight to use. So simple things like squats or press ups or tricep dips or a plank, depending obviously what works for you. Doing those and building on them. So if you start with press ups against the wall, then do them on the floor, but with your legs wide apart or on knees, and then gradually add and build up how many you're doing as well. Once that feels secure, it's then about adding some more weight. So you could do squats with some small weights, for example, or start off with a tin of beans, and build on that. And you want this progressive overload. That's how you're going to build your muscle. So when it feels like, it's getting easier, it's about taking the next stage. And there are lots of videos you can find, lots of videos on, body weight exercises and then building that, as well as, if you're a member of the gym, making use of the personal trainers and asking for their advice. So that is essential for pretty much everything we just spoke about. But your muscle is your metabolic protector. That is what's going to help protect your metabolic health. And stop those changes. We don't have to accept them. The things that change at perimenopause that make us feel different, make us look different, and change our health, increase risk of cardiovascular disease, are the changes in our fat, the more visceral fat, the insulin resistance, even things like changes to our blood vessels and how they work. So exercise is absolutely key to sort of holding those in the tracks, saying, no, I don't accept this, and stopping those changes. Obviously cardio, however that works for you, whether it's walking, whether it's going to the gym, whether it's skipping, whatever. And ideally, a combination of steady state, so that sort of zone 2 exercise is really good for the mitochondria, and some interval training. And you can do this, you can actually combine a lot of these things all in one. You don't have to have all these separate things. So for example, if you go to the gym, I imagine, Becky, you do quite a lot of these things in one workout. You'll do your cardio, you'll probably do some interval or some HIIT, you'll be doing your resistance, and actually chances are you're doing your balance and flexibility too, because you're warming up. You might be doing some sort of exercise, mainly on one leg or the other. So it doesn't have to be all separate. I like walking or running on trails and hills. So again, I get a lot of this in one thing. I'd naturally get intervals because it'll be flat and then it'll be up. I'll get balance because I have to not trip over tree roots. It doesn't have to be all separate. But these are the things that are key in one way or another. So it's just thinking about what you need now. And very often, a lot of women that I work with, they will have, maybe done a lot of exercise and have done a lot of something very intense. So maybe cross training, for example, or circuits, or some sort of very intense, and they do that frequently, and actually what their body needs now is more of a mixture, and what they're doing is exercise that, whilst amazing, is putting a stress on their body in terms of generating cortisol, making them feel stressed. And that's when their cortisol levels are higher anyway, their hormones are changing, and life generally is very stressful. So they're just, in their free time, adding that extra stress. So it's not about not doing that, but it's about actually, do you know what would be the most effective thing is swapping one of those to yoga or Tai Chi or yoga nidra, whatever it is, that sort of bringing cortisol down would have more of an effect. So it's just thinking about what it is you need at this life stage, and thinking about what you want to achieve and what exercise will help with that. And I do think HIIT is particularly effective because we can do it in such a short space of time, and some sort of resistance exercise if you have to choose. Is that okay? Have you got any questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so moving on to your path for week 3 and beyond, just a couple of things to think about and leave you with. Oh yeah, that does make sense. What have you learned works for you so far? So just sort of, and this is building on your belief in yourself and belief that this works. What's working? And also what are you having to do or use to make that happen? So basically, drawing up a list of your skills or your strengths that's making that happen, because then if you start to doubt yourself or you have a wobble or it gets hard, you can come back to that list. So it might be just, true grit that you're doing it, or patience, or absolute belief in your goals because you believe in personal responsibility for yourself, whatever it is. Write down a list of what strengths you're using, because that will stand you in really good stead in a month, 2 months time. Think about how you can practice consistency over perfection. And I think that just becomes more and more true as you continue your journey. This, I said earlier, that you have everything you need. You have the ability to do this. You have the skills to do this. So trust the process, and trust yourself. Believe in yourself that you can do this. Let everything else go that's happened before. And this is you focusing on the thing that's most important to you. And then just remembering that change is hard, but so is saying feeling, and whatever that was for you, whether it was feeling bloated, whether it was feeling depressed, whether it was feeling a lack of confidence, when you put on your clothes, whatever it was, that's hard. And change is difficult, but we're going to get to a place where it feels easier and easier, and you get the rewards back. So yeah, I hope that sort of feels helpful carrying on this week.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Yeah, as always, I'm here. So if you've got any questions, then do pop into the evening sessions or put it in the group or message me or email me privately, whatever you need.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.